Right, Stuart Broad. Who in their right mind saw that coming? Really, like it was when I've obviously we've had a couple of days now, haven't we, to kind of soak in the thoughts and the emotion and the heartbreak and the news and the positivity and everything about this guy's career. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that this has got to be one of the most hidden in plain sights kind of retirements that you could ever possibly think of. Like for the whole summer, well, no, not for the whole summer, for the whole 5 years, we've been talking about, well, when's Jimmy going to go? Like, when's Jimmy going to retire? When do you think Jimmy's going to go at the end of the Ashes? Oh, Jimmy might retire. And Broadie's just kind of like cruised along, and everybody's forgotten the fact he's 37 years old. He's played 167 tests. He's got a kid on the way. He's got pubs. He's undoubtedly going to be given a Sky Sports microphone as well. Like, he's got other things he wants to do. And out of nowhere, he's just kind of popped up and he's gone, no, I'm packing in at the end of this. And everyone's gone, what? We thought so much so the video that I put out on Saturday, I had recorded that as a kind of, this is a tribute to James Anderson. That was how that video was meant to come out on Saturday. So I'd done the intro, filmed it 3 or 4 different times at different places to kind of find a nice little kind of intro. Got back home from my cricket on Saturday night and re-recorded an introduction at like 10:30 at night because Broadie had retired and it wasn't Jimmy.
The things you do as a content creator, Dan, hey, you got to make sure the content's relevant. Love that commitment from you. I think he's blindsided all of us, really, hasn't he? It feels like because a lot of that attention was on Anderson, he's just kind of snuck in. And I think even in his interview, didn't he? He still wasn't sure at, 8:25 on Saturday night or whatever it was, before going and telling Stokesy at 8:30 or whatever it was. Also, love how I've just said Stokesy as if I know him. Ben Stokes. Yeah, and I think the way he spoke in his interview, you can tell how content he is with his decision. Obviously, he's said how much he's loving his cricket, and he's been so good in this Ashes series, like as he has been throughout his career, to be honest. But yeah, it certainly feels like he almost took a bit of potentially the spotlight being on Anderson, and he's taken it, and he's really bowing out with pride and on the back of a brilliant Ashes, despite obviously it not being as successful as it perhaps could have been from an England perspective.
Yeah, he's what is he? I think he's a couple of wickets, maybe 3 behind Stark, isn't he, for the series? I think Stark's got 23, and I think as it stands, I think Broad's got 20. So there's every chance with Australia at the point of recording. I think they've got 7 wickets left, but I think it's going to rain again at the Oval, and the rain's going to save Australia again, and all this other kind of good English kind of banter that we like to chuck around. He could well finish like top of the charts in terms of a bowler for the Ashes this summer. Yeah, okay. The result as the series hasn't gone his way, and I'm sure there would have been part of him at the start of the series that would have been thinking, I could potentially go at the end of it, having like regained the Ashes, playing this new kind of Bazball way, which he almost feels like he's been like the biggest cheerleader for Bazball as well, even more so I think than McCullum and Stokes. Like Broad, every interview he's had, like he's been so positive about the change of mindset in this England Test team, that I think that might have been the bit that kind of caught me quite off guard, is the fact that like every outward kind of opportunity to talk about Test cricket, Broad was kind of giving you the impression that he was absolutely loving it and wouldn't have changed it in the slightest. It was kind of like, you can almost like paraphrase him in the sense of, well, it's just like playing village cricket with your mates on the international stage. And to me at that point then I'm kind of thinking, well, if you're happy, you're just going to keep going. Like there was no part, a bit like James Anderson as well. Like I only really thought like he might have packed in this time because England don't play another Test match for another 6 months, and they don't play at home for another 11. It was nothing to do with the fact that like they weren't in being successful or they weren't being happy. So I think that's the thing for me that caught me off guard.
Yeah, and how positively he's spoken about it is like massive, and it's almost like he's saying that like he's never enjoyed cricket so much. And that you would almost think if someone is debating whether they are going to retire or not, that's going to be the thing that keeps them going until they get to a point where they think, do you know what? I I can't do this anymore, or my body's given up on me, or something like that. And he's like, I'm as fit as I've ever been. I've got through all 5 tests of this Ashes.
Yeah.
And I actually did see a stat, so I'll pull it out. So obviously he's played this final test, which means that he's featured in every match of the last 5 home Ashes series. So 2009, 2013, 2015, 2019, and then this 2023 series, which is a seriously impressive stat, which I guess just kind of sums him up. And I'm pretty sure, like, he's England's leading wicket taker, isn't he, in across this Ashes series? And I was looking at how many wickets he'd taken in other Ashes series. So obviously I was aware that how many wickets him and Jimmy have taken and kind of their prominence in the game. He's been the leader for England on numerous occasions, whether that's here or in Australia. And, like, sometimes the leader of the entire series. Like, so I think he said as well, he's got this love affair with Ashes cricket. And, like, his performances reflect that as well. And obviously, the fact that his body has got him through every single test match of the last 5 home Ashes series is a credit to him. Because I know before this Ashes series in particular, they were speaking about how the England like staff and team were speaking about how they needed this stock of seam bowlers that they were going to need to rotate, etc. But yeah, he's been a mainstay. He's been great, and just phenomenal bloke, isn't he?
Just a ridiculous athlete. Like, I think to echo your point, I think he is England's leading wicket taker in Ashes history. I think he's got more Ashes wickets than anybody else across the history of the entire Ashes even since when Bradman was playing. So I reckon he'd get Bradman out a couple of times. Just there's my hot take on Stuart Broad in the Ashes. I reckon he'd have the wool over Bradman. He's undoubtedly going to be like an English cult hero with some of the bits and bobs that he's been involved with. I think the rest of the world as well should kind of take their hat off to him and kind of go, actually, like, you were like quality. I mean, 600 test wickets, that's 4th on the list, isn't it? I think 4th or 5th on the list, 4th on the list, I think. And yeah, what a ridiculous cricketer. Is there kind of a moment that stands out for you that you kind of, when you think Stuart Broad, like, what is the first thing that comes to your mind?
Yeah, I just think back to the 8 for 15 at Trent Bridge, just down the road from where I am now. And I was actually watching the 8-minute video that the ECB had put out, remembering some of his best moments. I think it was just wickets, like none of his batting, and his batting's been entertaining as well at times. I think I've seen he's like the 5th leading 6 hitter. I thought that was quite relevant because he hit his last ball in Test match cricket for 6, didn't he? So that was pretty cool. But yeah, that 8 for 15 at Trent Bridge in 2015 was it, and he took, I think it was the fastest 5-wicket haul in Test match cricket at the time. I don't know if that's been beaten since, but 5 wickets in 19 balls. I mean, yeah. And when Ben Stokes took that diving catch at slip and he's just running there with his hands over his mouth, like, that for me is probably my Stuart Broad highlight. What's yours?
Do you know what? Like, it weirdly, it's not actually as positive as that one. Like, for me, the first thing I kind of think of is, you remember that press conference he gave down at the Ageas Bowl after that first COVID test? And I think Silverwood, was he coach at charge? I think he might have been in charge. They just hadn't picked him for the first test match. And he just sat there, like, with the grumpiest face on, with a massive, like, sulk and paddy because he hadn't been picked. And then, like, did the classic, what I think is probably the classic Stuart Broad, really, is he's kind of stuck 2 fingers up to the people that told him he wasn't actually good enough or wasn't fit enough or whatever at that particular time, and went on to have one of the best summers that he's ever had. Like, I think I just remember every scorecard was just covered in Broad, I think, after that moment. But yeah, the big kind of sulk and the big grump in the pod during that COVID test was hilarious. And weirdly, as I say, it's funny, isn't it, how, like, obviously that 8 for 15 is iconic. The nicking it to first slip and not walking is iconic. Shouting at the robot in Australia is iconic. The Test match 169 he's got is iconic as well. There's so many things that you can kind of think back to and go, and I'm sure there's probably more specific things that people have kind of picked out on their kind of favorite moments as well. Like they'll be thinking of a specific wicket or a particular kind of moment, a catch or something like that. But yeah, that kind of grumpy Stuart Broad in the pod was prime Broady for me.